my lovely students, how are you all? A very hearty welcome to this mind-blowing platform, Physics Wallah. My name is Upar Sharma and today is the ultimate recap of your two chapters, that is The Little Girl and A Truly Beautiful Mind. Okay, so we would be doing a quick recap of both these chapters. So first of all, we'll cover The Little Girl and then A Truly Beautiful Mind. Okay, so first of all, let us talk about the title, that is The Little Girl. As I have already told you, beta, the little girl refers to a little girl, obviously. But why are we calling her little? Is it because of her age? Is it because of her physical structure? Why are we calling her little? We'll find out in the end of this chapter. In the end of the chapter or during the chapter, we'll find out that why is she called a little girl. Okay, now. So what happens is that this little girl is, it refers to the main character of the story, that is Kezia. The name of the character is Kezia and the theme of the character, which is really very important, okay, it is the relationship between parents and their children. Okay, if we talk from the exam point of view, this question can come in your exam, the value-based question, the moral-based questions, you know that sometimes they come in our exams. So this type of question can come in your exam wherein they can ask you about the relationship between parents and their children. Now, what is the relationship between parents and their children? The parents love their children, they care for their children. But sometimes the relationship is not very simple. Sometimes the relationship is really very complicated. Sometimes the children, they are very much scared of their parents, and the reasons can be many. The parents can be really strict or the child can be really very naughty, and these things can lead to, an abnormal relationship between the parents and children. So we are going to talk about such relationship only. So the writer of the story is Catherine Mansfield. Okay, Catherine Mansfield. She tries to explain that the children share a very deep bond of love with their parents. Children love their parents, parents love their children, and they share a very deep bond with each other. But sometimes, even though young children do not feel that their parents love and care for them because they are strict, and to them, many of their parents' actions appear unfair. Sometimes we feel that our parents' actions, they are unfair, they are really very strict. And it usually happens in every household that children begin to, they begin to feel that the parents, they are not very caring. They're always, scolding us, and they're scolding us because, obviously we do something wrong, then only the parents, they scold us, or they, try to correct us. But we think that this is wrong, and sometimes, especially when we are very young, especially when we have not grown up, even when you are teenagers, and the teenagers can really relate to this, because when we are in our teenage, when we are in our adolescent years, then we think that peers are right, our friends are right, but our parents are actually very wrong. So why this little girl? She is not a teenager, but she is a little girl. Now, why does she feel so? Because the reason given in the chapter is that her parents are really very busy. Her parents are really very busy. Whenever she goes to talk to her parents are busy. For example, on Sunday mornings when she goes to meet her parents, her father is usually lying on the couch, on the sofa, and he's keeping covering his face with a handkerchief, and putting his head on a fine cushion. And the mother is always reading a magazine. So she is not able to connect with her parents even on a Sunday morning, okay, even on weekends. On weekdays, usually her parents are really very busy, but on Sunday mornings also, she cannot form a link between them. And that is the most important thing, when the parents do not spend time with the children. So this thing happens, the relationship cannot grow. So what we see is that Kezia lives with her grandmother, her father, her mother, okay, with her grandmother, her father and her mother. She is very close to her grandmother, but she is not very close to her parents. Okay, with her parents, she is not very much close to them. She is not very comfortable with him, especially her father. She feels relieved when she leaves for office. So what usually happens is that they are telling about their, daily morning. So what happens in the morning is that her father is getting ready for the office, and he's, shouting on everybody, because maybe he's shown as a figure of authority in the house, and he's a very dominating kind of a person who's always asking for his keys or for his files and his shoes and socks, and he's basically shouting in the morning. So that is why she thinks that my father is very strict. And what he does is that he every day before going to office, he kisses on her cheek. He gives her small kiss in order to show his love, and that's a very casual kiss. He doesn't talk to her, and he leaves for the office. Now whenever he leaves for the office, she becomes very happy. Kezia is really very happy. She is elated because her father has left, and now she does not have to behave in a certain way, because her father expects her to behave properly. He is always asking her, were you a good girl today? Were you a good girl? So obviously she tries to maintain a good, distance with her father. Her grandmother always encourages her to talk with them, but she feels that they are cold towards her. Now the grandmother is a lovely woman. She thinks that the relationship between the daughter and the parents is not good, okay? And she is always trying to work on the relationship. She is always trying to bridge the gap between the parents and the child. So she is always encouraging her to, go and talk to your parents, go and spend time with your parents. But whatever happens, whatever she does, the parents are always cold towards her. They are really very rude towards her. They do not talk to her properly. So one day what happens is that one day her grandmother suggests her to make a pincushion for her dad on his birthday. So one day Kezia is at her home. She didn't go to school that day because she was suffering from cold. So grandmother came and told her that your father's birthday is coming, so you make a pincushion for him. So this pincushion holds a really very important it's really very important character, we can say, in the play, in the chapter. So this is a pincushion. This is a pincushion. Pincushion is a sort of a small cushion you use to keep your pins intact. Now because we are talking about those times when the soft copies weren't available, there were only hard copies, and in order to manage so many papers, we required pins. Maybe there were no staplers that time. So these were the pins to manage all the cushions, to keep all the cushions intact. So she does that. She also decides that yes, I'm gonna make a pin cushion for my father. So the grandmother tells her that I'm gonna give you a yellow colors. I'm giving you yellow silk, and you just make this birthday present for your father so that he is happy, and maybe after he receives the present, he'll be happy. So that is what she does. She stitches the 3 sides of the pincushion casing, but couldn't find anything to stuff it. Okay, so now the girl has worked a lot, she has worked hard, she has, sewn all the 3 sides. Now she needed something to stuff it, because, pincushion is expected to be really very spongy, kind of a thing. So she starts finding the things to stuff it with. She sees that her grandmother is in the garden, and she sees that her mother is really very busy. So she goes to her mother's room, and she finds fine sheets of paper. That is when she finds fine sheet of paper. Okay, they were very fine sheet of paper in her mother's room, and uses that to stuff her cushion. She thinks that okay, these papers are really very fine, so she tears all the papers and stuffs that in the pin cushion. Those sheets turn out to be very important speech for the Port Authority. Now Kezia didn't know that these sheets are really very important. They were of the Port Authority. They were actually the papers of the speech. On those papers, the speech was written for the Port Authority. So Port Authority is a place where her father was supposed to give a speech. Now, although she accepts her mistake, she is punished by her father with the ruler on her palm. So what happens is that, there is a chaos in the house. There is a hue and cry. There is a term, there is a phrase used in the chapter, hue and cry. So there was a hue and cry in the whole house, and everybody was looking for the papers. The father was really very angry that where are my papers, where are my papers? And then the mother came to Kezia and she asked her that, Kezia, by the way, have you seen the papers? And she said, yes, I have seen the papers. I use them to stuff the cushion. And now the mother is really very surprised. She tells the father, and the father is pacing to and fro. He's like this. Okay, and he tells his mother, the grandmother of Kezia, that, take her to the room this instant. And then the father goes to her room, and when she enters the room, there is a very special mention in the chapter that when she goes to the room, before her father came, she saw that, the evening lights were making a sad pattern on the floor. There is a thing, evening lights making sad patterns on the floor. So this is also a really very important question that usually comes in your exam, is that why evening lights were making sad patterns on the floor? Why it is written in the chapter? Now Kezia knows that she is in trouble. She knows that her father is going to be really very angry on her. So she, this thing appears in front of her. What usually happens is that when we are very much happy, everything around is colorful. Everything around us is colorful. We are really, we feel elated. We really feel very happy. But when we are on the contrary, when we feel very sad, we are in a pensive mood. So these things happen. Everything around us seems to be very sad. So the evening light that was entering her room, it was making sad patterns on the floor. And then suddenly her father comes, and her father tells her that now I'm going to beat you. And that is what he does. He places a ruler on her soft palms. Now she failed to understand why she got punished even after she accepted her mistake. Okay, terribly she said, what did God make fathers for? Now after this incident, obviously the grandmother was really very concerned for the daughter, and she came and she, wrapped her in a blanket and she was rocking her on a rocking chair. And then she asked her grandmother that I accepted my mistake, then also my father, he beated me up. Why did he do so? And he asked, and she innocently asked her grandmother, what did God make fathers for? Actually, she could not understand that what is the purpose of a father, because my father does not love me. Then what is the other purpose of making fathers? And she was asking this thing, and the grandmother was convinced that she is a little girl, she is going to forget everything, and the next day when she'll wake up, she is going to forget each and everything. But that doesn't happen. That really doesn't happen. When she wakes up, she realizes that yes, she was being beaten, last night. And whenever she sees her father now, she, puts her hand behind, and, her cheeks, they turn pink, they turn red around her father. And this tells us that she never forgot this thing. That was deeply embedded into her mind. One evening, when she saw her neighbor, Mr. MacDonald, playing with his 5 children, she concluded that some fathers are caring and loving like Mr. MacDonald, and some are harsh like her father. One evening, she was watching from her fence that, there was a neighbor, they had a neighbor, and the neighbor was a really, we can say, a very loving and caring father. So she saw that Mr. MacDonald was playing with his children, and one child was on his shoulders, the 2 girls were clinging on his pocket, and the boys were doing they were circling around the father. And one day she also saw that the boys they had turned a water hose towards him, and he was not angry at all. So she thought that okay, fathers are really very different. God made fathers, and God made different fathers. Their father is loving and caring, but my father is really very harsh. That is why she had decided that yes, my father is really very rude and harsh. But soon her attitude changes, okay? But one thing happens one day, and her attitude completely changes. When she was left alone with her father one night. So what happened? One day, her mother was not feeling well and she was hospitalized, and the grandmother went along with her. So she was left alone in the house with Alice. Alice was their cook and her father. Okay. Now Alice put her to bed, and Alice told her that Kezia that, you know, do not wake up your poor pa. Okay, your poor pa is sleeping, do not wake him up, I'm gonna go to my home now. So she was like that, okay, I sleep with my grandmother. No, I need my grandmother because I always have a terrible, you know, nightmares. Now if we talk about Kezia, as I told you that she's a little girl and she also has these, you know, very scary nightmares when she sees that there is a butcher. Okay, there is a butcher and the butcher is having a big knife, he's also having a rope, and the butcher is smiling and smiling, he's grinning and he's running towards Kezia, and Kezia is also running. So Kezia has this kind of a dream, and she you know, is really very concerned that what's gonna happen today. She was confronted by her father when she had a terrible nightmare. He made her comfortable and warm on his bed and told her to rub her feet with his legs and set them warm. So what happens is that Kezia slept, but soon she had a terrible nightmare and this, you know, butcher and knife, and she started calling grandma, grandma, grandma. And what she realized was that her father was standing near her bed and he was holding a candle in his hand, and then he picked her up in his arms and then he took her to his bedroom where the newspapers were lying. He just set aside the newspapers and then he tucked her in and he made her comfortable, and then she was feeling cold, she was shivering. Then he told her that you know, you can rub your feet against mine. So this was really a very loving gesture on the father's side. She realizes that her father was not a bad person and he loves and cares for her in his own way. So this is a really sweet thing. Then she noticed that his father's body was really very hard. It was not just soft like the grandmother's body. But that day she realized that her father is not bad after all. Okay. Moreover, he had to work whole day to provide for his family and was too weary by evening to play with her. She also felt her father's, you know, heartbeat. She told her father that, you know, father, you have a big heart. You know, she realized that, you know, my poor pa, nobody takes care of my poor pa, you know, nobody takes care of him, and you know, he's working all the day, so he's really very weary, he's really very tired at night. That is why maybe he's not able to play with me, because he is really very tired. He's not free like McDonald, Mr. McDonald, my neighbor. So the question is that why she was called a little girl. Okay, this thing, let me tell you. She was called a little girl because she thought that her father was a giant. Earlier, she thought that my father was a giant. My father has big hands and big legs he has, and when he's yawning, his mouth opens just like a monster. So she compares her father with a giant. But that day she realizes that, you know, my father is not a giant after all. My father is not so big after all. And my father has a big heart. He is a really very sweet man. So that is the day when everything is perfectly fine and she develops a sweet and loving and caring bond with her father. That is the day she realizes that my father is after all a very nice man. Okay, so this is a really very beautiful story wherein the relationship between the daughter and father is refined when, you know, they were left alone in the house and she realized this thing afterwards. Okay, now let us proceed to the second chapter, that is the truly beautiful mind. What is a truly beautiful mind? Now let's talk about the title, a truly beautiful mind. Now when we talk about mind, how can mind be beautiful? The first question that comes to our mind is that how can mind be beautiful? Beautiful is a thing that is used to, express the beauty of something. How can mind be beautiful? That is what we're gonna find out in this chapter. So Albert Einstein was born on March 14, 1879 in German city of Ulm. Okay, Ulm. He could not talk for about 2.5 years, so mother taught him to be abnormal. Now, what happened was that, first of all, let us find out that what was his birth date. His birth date was March 14, 1879. Now, when he was born, he had a big head, okay, and His mother only thought that he was, a bit abnormal. He was a big freak and he couldn't speak until the age of 2.5 years. Now, usually the children, they start speaking at the age of 10 months, 11 months, they start doing blah, blah, baba, mama, papa, they start speaking these words and, they are able to speak words. After 1 year, they are able to speak properly the words, but he did not utter anything after 2.5 years. And when he started speaking at the age of 5, he, repeated everything twice. So he used to stammer, he used to repeat everything twice. So this showed that he was not quite a normal child. Okay, he could not mix up with his playmates, neither could he mix up with the playmates. They called him brother boring. Okay, he had playmates, he had his, other children he played with, and he never knew how to, involve with them. Usually what happens is that whenever we see such a child, we think that, this child is really very abnormal. What is he going to do in his life? He's not very proactive, he's not talking to the other people, his growth rate is not very normal. So what's going to happen with him? But the contrary thing happens, that Albert Einstein, who is synonymous to genius, okay, his name is synonymous to genius, he is a really genius person, but he had an abnormal childhood. He especially loved mechanical toys. So on looking at his newborn sister, he asked, where are her wheels? Now, because he loved mechanical toys, he did not like to play with other children, but he loved to play with mechanical toys, those who have screws and everything, wheels like cars and everything. So when his little sister was born, the first question he asked her mother was, where are her wheels? Because he thought that she is also a toy. At the school, his headmaster told that boy would never make a success at anything. As I told you, that his growth rate was really not very normal. So the professor even told that he's not going to be success at anything. So that's really very surprising to note that he was not very intelligent. He was not considered to be intelligent. He was not considered to be normal right from his beginning. He learned to play the violin at the age of 6 and later became a gifted amateur violinist. So the mother was really very concerned for Albert Einstein, and she wanted him to learn playing violin because she thought that maybe he should develop an extra skill. So he started learning violin and he was a very good violinist. He scored good marks in almost every subject in high school. When he went to high school, although he started scoring good marks in Munich, where his parents had moved when he was 15 months old. Okay, when they were 15 months old, they moved to Munich and he was studying in Munich school only, wherein he was getting good marks in his high school. Now, Einstein felt suffocated in the strict discipline of school. So at the age of 15 years, he convinced his parents after long discussion to continue his education in German-speaking Switzerland. So this is a really very interesting part, that Albert Einstein, he did not like the rigid and strict discipline of the school. Now, we can say that he was a kind of a person who did not accept the rigidity or the strict, because the schools, they follow a specific kind of a syllabus, they follow a specific type of a curriculum, but he was not really very happy with that. He thought that Switzerland is more liberal than Munich, so he decided that I should move to, Switzerland and I should gain my education from there. There, I would not have to face this, this rigidity that I face in Munich. Einstein was highly gifted in mathematics and physics. So mathematics and physics were his favorite subjects. He graduated from the University of Zurich. In 1902, he finally got a job as a technical expert. So earlier he was not having any job, but then he became a technical expert in the patent office in Bern. While doing his job, he was developing his own ideas in secret. Okay. So we got, we see that in 1902 he finally got a job in a patent office. His job was to assist another scientist. So he was not having a job wherein he was a scientist, he was rather working as an assistant. But along with that, he was really very hardworking. Along with that, he was working on his own theories, and he used to call his desk Bureau of Theoretical Physics. Okay, he used to call it that. He used to work all his ideas were in his office, on that desk. During graduation, he fell in love with a fellow intelligent student, Mileva Marek. So in the University of Zurich itself, he found Mileva Marek. Now this is also really very interesting, that Mileva Marek was also studying from there, and that was the only university at that time. University of Zurich was the only university at that time who was giving degrees to women. Otherwise no other university was taking a girl as a student. He wanted to marry her, but his mother was against it, and she was an intelligent girl and 3 years older than Albert. The pair finally married in 1903 and had 2 sons. So if we look, we are also going to talk about the personal life of Albert Einstein. Now we will see that Albert Einstein, although he was a really very famous scientist, he was a world citizen, he was a visionary, but he was not really very successful in his love life. So when he got married to Mileva Marek, earlier the mother was also not agreeing. Albert Einstein's mother, she did not agree of their alliance, because Mileva Marek was 3 years older than Albert Einstein, and she was also a scientist like her. So the mother thought that these two geeks, they are always going to be in the books, and they are computerized, and they're always working on their theories and everything, so their marriage is not going to be successful. So but they eventually got married. They eventually got married in 1903, and they also had 2 sons. After a few years, the marriage became weak. Mileva started losing her intellectual ambition and became an unhappy housewife. So if we look that, we are talking about those times when the women did not have equal rights and opportunities. So if we talk about Mileva Marek, although, Mileva Marek, if we talk about Albert Einstein used to call Mileva Marek a clever creature. He used to call her a clever creature. Then they got married, but when they got married, she had to raise 2 sons. Albert Einstein was working on his theory. She had to raise the 2 sons, alone, and she thought that her intellectual capability was being curbed. She thought that, I have worked so hard for getting a degree, and I have worked in university at Zurich, and I have done this and I have done that. I'm so intelligent. But after getting married, these all things, I'm putting all these things to stake. So that is why she became very unhappy, and it finally resulted into their divorce. In 1919, the couple finally divorced, and he married his cousin Elsa the same year. Okay, he also got married to his cousin. So this is also a really very shocking thing, that he got married to his cousin Elsa. In 1915, he had published his theory of relativity. It gave a new meaning to the word gravity. Okay, so this is also really very important. General theory of relativity. E is equal to mc square. This famous equation, which is called E is equal to mc square, it was given by Albert Einstein only. And it actually gave a different meaning to gravity. We are able to learn about black holes and, everything about gravity, about, the space science, all because of this theory of relativity. An eclipse of the sun in 1919 proved the theory that it was accurate, and this eclipse also proved in 1919 that his theory was absolutely right. So he became famous overnight, and his theory, it is so much important in the field of physics that even you must have read the general theory of relativity. Even in your chapter it is explained that general theory of relativity states that time and distance, they are not absolute. Time and distance are not absolute. For example, the reason can be that if you're talking to your friend for 2 hours, it would feel just, that you were talking for 2 minutes. But if you're standing on a red light, and the red light is for 30 seconds or 40 seconds, it just feels like a whole decade. It feels like that, as if you're standing for a really very long period. And when you are, sitting on a hot pan for 2 minutes, it would feel that you were as if sitting for 2 hours. So this is the difference. This is the thing. Tells us that time and distance are not absolute. This is just a very simple explanation that was given in your chapter. But if you really want to read it, you can read it. You can watch the documentary which is based on Albert Einstein, which is going to tell you everything in detail. Okay. So newspaper called his work as a scientific revolution. Indeed, it was a scientific revolution. He received Nobel Prize in 1921 for physics. He was praised for his work over the world. Now, up till this part, we just learned that how good a person, how good a scientist was, Albert Einstein. But now we are going to find out that how good a person was Albert Einstein. In 1933, Nazi came to power in Germany, so he immigrated to the US. Obviously, we know that Albert Einstein, he was, he was not a Nazi. He was a Jewish person, and you know that how much Nazis hate the Jewish people. So he had to immigrate to US. 5 years after the discovery, were very upset. They were afraid the Nazis could build and use the atomic bomb. Now nuclear fission was discovered. This was the time when they discovered nuclear fission. You know what's nuclear fission? Nuclear fission is that when you break the nucleus of the atom, then it releases a lot of energy. So the scientists were really very concerned about after that, people may be able to, devise it for the wrong purposes. They would be able to make atomic bombs. On the request of a colleague, he wrote a letter to the American President Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, warning him that a single bomb exploded in a port might very well destroy some of the surrounding territory. Because he was aware of this nuclear power, he was aware of this atomic explosion. So he wrote a letter to Franklin D. Roosevelt that this should not be, used. And if Nazis find about this nuclear fission, they can use it in wrong ways. But we know what happened. The contrary thing happened. America secretly developed that atomic bomb and dropped it on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He was trying to warn America that, Nazis should not be able to make the atomic bomb, but, Americans, they themselves made the atomic bomb and they bombed it on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Einstein got politically involved in the next 10 years, protesting to end arms buildup. He wanted to end the, this ammunition built up. He campaigned for peace and democracy. So we can see that not only he was, a good scientist, he was such a good person, he was a world citizen. He always wanted to work towards world peace. So he tried to explain America, but America used it for their own purpose. And then thereafter, for 10 years, he dedicated 10 years of his life to the politics and everything. This scientific genius died in 1955 at the age of 76. He was celebrated not only as a scientist, but as a visionary and a world citizen. You know what's a world citizen? World citizen is a person who does not relate himself just to a single country, but to the whole world. He also campaigned for world government. He wanted the formation of a world government. He wanted that there should be peace and tranquility everywhere. But unfortunately, these things didn't happen. So that is why. Do you come to know now, do you understand the name of the title now? The Truly Beautiful Mind. Truly Beautiful Mind tells us that Albert Einstein's mind was not just a genius mind, but rather it was a beautiful mind. A beautiful mind who was, to make a beautiful notion of a beautiful world. He wanted the world to be free of violence. He wanted the world to be free of arms and ammunition. So this is really a very great person that you really must read about. So I hope that you understood the ultimate recap of both these chapters. If you have any doubt, you can let us know. Thank you so much, children. Take care. Bye-bye.